Hey folks, Mr. Dell here. We are looking at finding the equation, the pattern of a tile pattern, the actual rule for a tile pattern based on some of the information they give us. Sometimes it's the actual figures, graphs, the equation itself, but we have to look and find the growth and the figure zero for each of these. So this is a problem from CPM's Course 3, Section 6.1.3, specifically number 6-32. So the first part here, part A, it gives us our figure 2, our figure 3, figure 4. So from this, it wants me to find the pattern of growth. So I need to find the growth rate as well as the number of tiles in figure 0, which would be the y-intercept. And this is why, because this leads into this y equals mx plus b, right? Where m is the growth rate. So if I want to then be able to write the equation and utilize the equation, m is the growth rate and b is figure 0, or we can say that's also known as the y-intercept, right? So that's the reason why we're looking for those two pieces. Basically, m is my growth rate, b is my figure 0, and that's what I want. So for this first one, I tend to look to see, well, what's the pattern? What is it growing by? So my figure 2, I'm going to count how many tiles there are. Figure 2 looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So figure 2 has 13 tiles. Figure 3 has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 2 is 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 tiles. Figure 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times 2, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23. So is there identified as a growth here, right? Is that growing at a constant rate? So from 13 to 18, it grows by 5. From 18 to 23, it also grows by 5. So yes, there is a growth rate. My growth rate is positive 5. Okay. So then my figure 0. So how do I figure that out? Well, if I know my growth rate is positive 5, the question is, can I go backwards to figure 1 and then backwards again to figure 0? Right? So that's how I would figure out what figure 0 is. If I'm adding 5 each time, then going backwards, you subtract 5, right? Because I want to figure out some number plus 5 is 8, right? Some number plus 5 is 13. What is that number? My brain had it in my brain there, so I said it. 8, right? 8 plus 5 is 13. If you subtract 5, you'll get there. Same thing. What number plus 5 is 8? Well, it's 3 plus 5 because you can subtract to go backwards. So there it is. There's my figure 0. For B, there would be 3 tiles in figure 0. Okay, so that's A. There's part A. And that's given the tiles. In B, I'm given the graph. Well, I mentioned up here in the graph that M represents the growth and B represents the figure 0, or what we call the y-intercept. So if I look, I can immediately look to see, oh, well, there's the y-intercept. The y-intercept is at positive 3. That point is 0, 3. So my figure 0 would be 3 again, because that's where it crosses the y-axis. Where that crosses the y-axis is where the y-intercept is. So my growth now, I look at how far am I going either up or down when I go over each figure, right? So X represents the figure numbers. So every figure I go over, like here's my figure 1, I end up at that point. So it looks like what I'm doing is I'm going down 2 over 1. So I'm subtracting, I'm going down, I'm going negative 2. So my growth in this case is negative 2. Because every point I go down 2 over 1. Down 2 over 1. So you can see it's negative 2 over 1 is my growth. Okay. All right. Part C. Part C is an equation form. And back to up here, I know the standard form of the equation, y equals mx plus b. M is your growth. B is your y-intercept. So if I look here, y is equal to mx plus b. Well, my m is always the coefficient of the x. That's my growth. My growth is 3. B is always that constant, but pay attention that sign in front of that constant is minus. So it's plus B. So in this case, minus 14. So really, if I want to write it like this, I could say this is 3x plus negative 14. So that negative 14 is what my figure 0 is, or my y-intercept. Last one, going from a table. So I want to find the growth. And first of all, in this table, as long as my x's are in consecutive order, I can find that growth. So it's important to first look to see, are my x's in consecutive order? And they are, right? It's increasing by 1 each time. Each time my x's are increasing by 1. So that's consecutive. So if that's the case, then I just got to look to see what is the growth going from one y to the next y. And if you look, it looks like it's decreasing, right? Every time I go from 1 to the next, I'm decreasing by 5. I'm subtracting 5. So my growth is going to be negative 5 for this problem. And my figure 0 is where x equals 0. So right here is my figure 0. So my figure 0 is 3. Okay. All right, there we go.